Hi guys, here with another edition of Netflix or Not-Flix. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically I will watch a film that Netflix has recommended to me, and I will let you know if it's any good or not. So maybe save you the bother of watching a really bad film or recommending a really good film that you may miss because you just kind of ignore all these recommendations that Netflix just keep pouring into your inbox. So I'm kind of doing all the hard work so you don't have to, and you're welcome because I've seen some really bad films so far. Um, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about a film called Crucifixion, The Crucifixion. Um, yeah, it's the basic story is based on true story. I'm always kind of wary about those kind of films where they say based on true story or based on factual events, because 9 times out of 10, they're just kind of like using that as a hook to kind of get you in. But ultimately, the real life story of what the film is about is they don't match up very well. I think that's maybe the case with this film. I'm always kind of dubious about that kind of advertising. You know, let's get into it. So the film, it's about a exorcism that goes wrong, demonically possessed nun who dies, and the priest and the nuns that were involved get arrested for murder. And a reporter in New York gets sent over to investigate the story. And yeah, she has her own agenda. She has her own kind of like beef with God and religion that she wants to kind of deal with and work through. And it's just her kind of going around trying to get the real story, even though we kind of know what the real story is because they show us that in the beginning of the film, that she was actually possessed and that the exorcism was stopped and that's why she died. So we, the audience, are just kind of thinking, well, we know what happened. I don't really want to see this girl walking around rural Romania for an hour and a half asking questions about what happened when I know what happened. It just, yeah, didn't really appeal to me, to be honest, but I watched it. My verdict is, I think you probably guess, it's a Not-Flix from me, so a diner. Uh, and it's not because I'm quite partial to the odd, exorcism, demonic possession movie. I've watched a few in my time. Obviously, The Exorcist is like the ultimate. That's the benchmark that everyone has to hit, and it's really hard because that's like, it was a classic horror movie, classic, tale of good versus evil. The ultimate tale of good versus evil. So yeah, it's a genre that I'm familiar with, and it's a genre that I do, I'm quite partial to because I was raised quite strictly as a Roman Catholic, so I'm not practicing. I never really was. I kind of, I don't believe in anything really. I'm an atheist, but I'm always fascinated by these kind of films where it shows you, the ins and outs of the church and what they get up to, and it makes me wonder: are they really doing this kind of stuff? Are they really doing exorcisms like every month and stuff like that? This film doesn't really do a lot for the genre, if I'm honest. It's very kind of, it's nothing you haven't seen before. It's quite boring, really, if I'm honest. I'm trying to think of something good I can say about the film. I mean, it's like I said, it's set in rural Romania, so there's some quite nice scenery, some nice tracking shots and stuff of the scene, like the background, and that it looks quite nice there. Apart from the fact that there's lots of demons running around for some reason. Um, so the acting's okay, I guess. Like the lead female reporter, she's not really that good. She's quite boring. Um, I didn't believe in her character. She's a bit one dimensional. It feels to me that the actress kind of watched somebody playing a reporter in a film once and thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. That's how you do it. So I'm just going to copy and paste that performance. She wasn't the most charismatic lead. Not much going on there. I didn't really, when she's got this big kind of like beef against religion and God because of her mother died and wouldn't take treatment that might have helped her because she wanted to be with God, and her daughter's kind of got this issue now with God, and oh, God killed my mother. And there's a scene where she kind of explains this to a priest, and it's like, I just don't feel connected to her. I don't care about her story. Just it's boring. She didn't sell it to me, basically. And I'm a guy that does have the same kind of issues with God. So yeah, I was rooting for her, but it didn't really work for me. I didn't connect with the character. Also, I'm wondering, why would a New York paper send a reporter all the way to Romania just to cover something like that? I find that quite unbelievable. I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. It just seemed a bit bizarre that they'd spend all that money to send her there for a week just for her to get a story that may or may not be about demonic possession. I don't know. It doesn't sound like the kind of thing that a New York newspaper would do. The other thing, the ending was very, very rushed. It was like, I'm going to go into spoiler territory here, although it's, as the film goes on, it's quite obvious that they're building up to the reporter becoming possessed by this original demon. And she does, ultimately. I thought maybe in the last minute they were going to do some sort of weird twisty-roo where it's actually the girl who was friends with the original girl that was possessed and not the reporter, but they didn't. They just kind of went with the most obvious path of least resistance and possessed the reporter. And it literally took 5 minutes to kind of exorcise her at the end, and it was fine, whereas you look at the original girl, who was a nun. She had a priest and like 5 nuns trying to do her exorcism. It sounded like it took like days and days and days and days and days for them to do this exorcism. At the end, she gets possessed. A priest comes in. 5 minutes later, boom, she's fine. And it was like, well, it's a bit rubbish, really. It's a bit fast. There's also a really bizarre kind of slow-mo shot with water effects at the end, like droplets of water, and it seemed to me, I was watching it and I thought, well, that's where 90% of the budget's gone, because I didn't see any real budget in the rest of the film. It's quite cheaply made, I think, and that shot, I was like, yeah, that's where all the budget's gone, on that one specific special effect. But maybe I'm just being cynical. So yeah, like I said, it doesn't do anything new with the genre. It's quite boring, it's quite plodding, it drags along. The jump scares, because there are jump scares, they're not really that good. You see them coming like 10 miles away, so when they do come eventually, you're not really affected by them as much as you should be. I'm not a big fan of jump scares, but in the right situation, the right scenario, they can really work quite well, I think, to unnerve the audience and get them on edge. But this film doesn't do anything really to make them any better than it's really cheap jump scares. What else can I say about this film? Jump scares, really boring plot, unbelievable main character. I don't know if it was her acting or if that was the way the role was written, but I mean, the only thing I've ever seen her in is the Kingsman films, and she's got a very limited role in those, so I don't know. Maybe she's really good. So yeah, it's a big Not-Flix from me on this one. If you are interested in this genre, the demonic possession / exorcism / good versus evil films, I could recommend a lot better ones. There's a relatively new one that's just come out called The Possession of Hannah Grace. That's really good. It kind of, again, it doesn't do anything crazy, but it's a bit more original than most of these films, and I liked the way it was made. It was quite slick and it looked good. There was a bit of creepiness in there as well, which I liked. And it kind of does something with the story that I haven't seen in a lot of other films, where it's kind of like the aftermath of an exorcism rather than the exorcism itself, and I quite like that. So I'd recommend that. Then obviously there was a film called The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which technically isn't a demonic possession, it's more of like a witch kind of black magic thing, but it was really, really good. It was really creepy, really effective horror movie. And then there's 2 kind of low budget found footage films, which I would recommend, called The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is told through the lens of a documentary crew, doing a documentary about Alzheimer's. And it turns out that Alzheimer's and demonic possession are the symptoms are quite similar apparently, but they make it really effective. It's quite creepy. And another film called The Possession of Michael King, which is brilliant. to me. It's a found footage film. I'm not a big fan of found footage films, I have to be honest, but those two work with the concept really, really well, and it works really, really well. And the subject matter is handled really, really in an original way. And the possession of Michael King, especially, creeped me out for days after I watched that. So if you're into demonic possession movies, then I'd go for one of those rather than the Crucifixion. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. But yeah, it's a Not-Flix from me, I'm afraid. I'll catch you next time.